Hello there. So MPs are being bullied by whips. Have they no backbone or honour? It looks like the Tory Party MP selection process has worked well over the years. What they've managed to do is select a bunch of self-serving no-hopers who are content to be bullied and told what to do, as long as they are given a good chance at re-election and staying on the Westminster gravy train. So many of them are in reality just spineless party voting fodder. And it's this issue of a chance for those MPs to get re-elected that is causing Boris some problems. Now that the new Tory Red Wall MPs can see that they might just be a temporary blue addition to the House of Commons, they're getting a bit twitchy and looking at ways to stay. The trouble for them, though, is that they've decided that Boris is the liability that will sink them, so have turned on him. But guess what? Boris is what got them elected in the first place. No one else in line after him could achieve that. So if Boris goes, their chances of re-election with the Tories sinks with him. No wonder there's talk of defecting to Labour. Their jobs are at stake. And now they start stories about bullying by the Boris-supporting Tory Whip's office. And there's also reports that they've got recordings of these damning conversations. Well, I say, publish them. Today. Let's have this all out in the open, now. Not kept in reserve by MPs, hoping to use them at a later date for their own personal advantage. Now, many of the lockdown-breaking antics of Downing Street staff occurred many months ago, and people sat on the reports for their own personal gain, whether it be the press or politician. And now it's coming out that way over these bullying allegations. The Guardian writes, MPs said the tactics had been used not only during the so-called Partygate scandal, but ahead of the votes on the Uyghur genocide, cutting international aid, free school meals, and the rise in national insurance. The Times reported that rebels were considering releasing texts or recordings of their conversations with whips to show their tactics. There you go. Proof that these people have been holding the information back, sitting on it. Why? For personal advancement later, possibly? Why did they not come straight out and say they were working for bullying and immoral people, so would be resigning from their party and sitting as independents forthwith? I'll tell you why. Because without that blue rosette, their gravy train carriage would hit the buffers at the next general election. So how does that make their position any more moral than the Tory Whip's office? Now, one of the complaints I heard was that the Whips had said they would redraw an MP's constituency boundaries or some such nonsense. Anyone who knows anything about these things knows that a government cannot arbitrarily redraw boundaries, and even if they did, that would affect all the surrounding constituencies and wider. Further, that any such exercise has to be conducted through the Boundary Commission, and that takes years to do, and they might have something to say about it being done purely for short-term political reasons. And I also wonder how real these claimed threats of withholding funding for local services are, because that's the quickest way to lose a seat. Withdraw funding for its schools and hospitals. Much more believable for me would be if they claimed they were told that their local party chairman will get them deselected at the next election. But even that would probably go against internal party rules for the Tories. And I also assume most MPs have a very good relationship with their local party and the chairman to get selected in the first place. And otherwise they'd be out campaigning on their own with no support, wouldn't they? Now, one Conservative MP, Jane Stevenson, tweeted, "I have rebelled and abstained against the Tory whips since my election. At no point have the whips behaved unprofessionally, made any threats or used any form of intimidation. We have had robust and frank chats about policy and my point of view. Always interesting, always fair." But another Tory MP, Michael Fabricant, tweeted a double-edged message. He seemed to be supportive of Boris while actually saying that whips do make threats. "If I reported every time I had been threatened by a whip, or if a whip reported every time I had threatened them, the police wouldn't have any time to conduct any other police work. What nonsense from William Ragg." William Ragg being a Tory MP with a history of criticising Boris Johnson, who is also the chairman of the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee. With the Mirror reporting, William Ragg, chair of the Commons Public Administration Committee, said Tory colleagues had been subject to intimidation by the party whips over their perceived opposition to the Prime Minister. Number 10 staff, special advisers and government whips also encouraged embarrassing stories being released to journalists if they did not support the Prime Minister, he claimed. While William Ragg himself said, "Intimidation of a Member of Parliament is a serious matter. Moreover, the reports of which I am aware would seem to constitute blackmail. As such, it would be my general advice to colleagues to report these matters to the Speaker of the House of Commons and the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Or they could just grow a backbone, leave the party and sit as an independent. Or better still, resign and stand under their own banner or for another party in a by-election. That would get the Tory whips out of their lives for good. But as that won't guarantee them re-election, I doubt they would do that." Oh, and Keir Starmer and his Labour Party had better be a little careful about how they play this one. Because when, and it will be when they get back into power, they will be bound by any rules they end up forcing onto the Tories over this. They would find their whip's office as equally toothless as they try to make the Tory whip's office today. And according to Guido Fawkes, the Labour Party has its own history of ruthless political whipping, saying, "To pretend that any of this is a new form of whipping is disingenuous, and you needn't look any further than Labour's own history to understand that. Nick Brown, the former chief whip under Blair, Brown, Miliband, Corbyn and even Starmer, was notorious for his fierce discipline over members. He had the most feared reputation out of almost anyone in the tea room." And how about this one then? In 2001, then Labour MP Paul Marsden accused the whips, particularly Jim Dowd and Jerry Sutcliffe, of physically and verbally assaulting him like thugs for criticising Blair's anti-terrorism bill. But I wonder if we'll now see Christian Wakeford, who's just defected from the Tories to Labour, start complaining about the Labour Party whips. I gather he also co-sponsored a bill to force MPs who defect to hold a by-election. He must have forgotten about that one. So what's your opinion on MPs and threats from party whips? Please like and comment below. Please subscribe and like this video, buy a mug and support me on Patreon or PayPal, and thank you for watching.